In 2024, Apple and OpenAI stood together on a massive stage at WWDC. Tim Cook announced that ChatGPT was being baked directly into the iPhone, effectively rebranding artificial intelligence as Apple Intelligence for billions of users. On paper, it was the perfect corporate marriage. Apple needed cutting-edge software to stay relevant, and OpenAI gained immediate access to the pockets of consumers worldwide. But by July 2026, the honeymoon was over. Apple filed a devastating 41-page lawsuit against its former partner, officially calling OpenAI's hardware business rotten to its core. Behind the scenes, Sam Altman used this partnership as cover. He was actively laying the groundwork to build physical consumer electronics of his own. That historic WWDC presentation functioned as a Trojan horse, buying OpenAI the time and inside access they needed to position themselves to eventually replace the iPhone entirely. To start building a physical product, OpenAI dropped $6.5 billion to acquire a stealth startup called I.O. The company was run by Jony Ive, the legendary ex-Apple designer who spent 30 years crafting the look of the iMac, iPod, and iPhone. Leaked descriptions revealed exactly what Ive's new team was building: a mobile, screen-free home smart speaker. It relies on mechanical parts that move independently, creating the illusion of a living personality that connects with users on a human level. And to complete that lifelike persona, they wrapped the whole package in the highly recognizable voice they controversially borrowed from Scarlett Johansson. Building this device required massive manpower, so OpenAI lured away more than 400 Apple employees. According to the lawsuit, they actively instructed these incoming engineers to steal intellectual property before leaving their current desks. Recruiters allegedly circulated a specific cheat sheet teaching candidates how to dodge the dreaded walkout, the standard tech industry practice where security escorts you from the building the moment you resign. Evading this protocol bought incoming hires an extra 2 weeks of unrestricted access inside Apple's network. During that window, OpenAI's hardware chief explicitly told interviewing engineers to bring actual parts for show and tell. They weaponized a standard corporate hiring process into a systematic pipeline, pulling confidential data and physical prototypes directly out of Cupertino and into OpenAI headquarters. But for all of that institutional planning, the entire operation was exposed by the staggering incompetence of individual actors. Take Chang, a senior electrical engineer, whose actions effectively handed Apple the evidence they needed. After securing his new job at OpenAI, Chang stumbled onto a major authentication bug deep within Apple's internal network storage systems, giving him uninhibited access to protected files. Instead of keeping quiet, he celebrated the exploit with a co-conspirator over completely unencrypted text messages, writing, "Laugh out loud, I found out I can access the network storage, so funny." His coworker eagerly replied that she was ready, but there was a fatal flaw in their heist. Chang decided to execute this massive, unauthorized data grab while typing directly on her Apple-issued work laptop, a machine heavily monitored by corporate security. Even after quitting, his hubris continued. Hours after his exit, he sent another text explicitly stating he still had a second Apple computer that he planned to keep using. Writing elegant code requires a different skill set than pulling off corporate espionage. Chang's digital trail of bragging and heavily monitored logins handed Apple an airtight timeline of theft on a silver platter. Despite the embarrassment of these leaked text messages, the damage is already done. OpenAI has cemented itself as a permanent, physical competitor in the consumer electronics space, heavily armed with insider knowledge. But if Apple expects sympathy from the rest of the tech industry, they might want to look at their own founding myth. 50 years ago, a young Steve Jobs took a highly publicized tour of Xerox PARC. While walking through their labs, he saw their experimental graphical user interface and the computer mouse. He immediately went back to his team and ordered his engineers to replicate those exact technologies for Apple's own machines. Jobs never apologized for taking the concepts that built his empire. Instead, he famously justified it by quoting Picasso, "Good artists copy, great artists steal." Apple's 41-page lawsuit represents the inescapable cycle of Silicon Valley. Reigning champions must constantly defend their empires from newcomers, who recognize that stealing the blueprint is often the only way to build the next era of computing.